Hello everyone and welcome. Today I have the chance to be with Alekos. Thank you for being here, Alekos.
Thank you for having me.
We are here in El Salvador for Cuba Plus. It's a great experience to learn about Bitcoin and teaching young Salvadorian. Maybe it's the best for the international audience that doesn't know you. It's like, who are you and what are you doing?
Yeah, so I'm Alekos. I've been working on Bitcoin since 2017. I'm a developer. Over time, I've been through a few companies. So I started a blockchain lab with Giacomo Zucco, then moved to Blockstream, then launched the BDK project, which is like a Rust library to build Bitcoin wallets. And more recently, I kind of stepped down from BDK, so I'm basically doing like consultancy work, like whatever happens, and very, I don't know, yeah, basically open to consultancy, and I help companies doing Bitcoin stuff. So yeah, that's it.
Just that,
Just that, yeah, just that.
So yeah, the first question everyone will have is like, how did you manage to do so much? You look pretty young. So my question is like, when did you start to learn how to code, and how did you get those skills to move so fast in the Bitcoin ecosystem before? So before Bitcoin, how did you learn how to code?
So I started coding basically by myself when I was like 12 years old, because I always like puzzles and math and this kind of stuff. So I used to play with computers, just like playing with games. And at some point I figured, I want to know what's inside the computer, like what's going on more on a deeper level. And so yeah, so looking into coding. I was initially doing web development. And so obviously at 12 I was still in school. So before Bitcoin, I did basically web development mainly, mostly self-taught. While I was middle school and high school. And then when I finished school, I didn't really want to go to college because it's not really my thing. Again, I like to learn by myself pretty much, so I don't really like to have a teacher telling me what to do and giving me homework, and not my thing. So I didn't want to go to college. At the same time, kind of during high school, I had learned about, or at least I heard about Bitcoin a little bit. And kind of randomly, I managed to meet Giacomo and Blockchain Lab, and he offered me a job, and I went in. So before Bitcoin, I was basically a web developer, mostly self-taught.
And where did you learn? Online, YouTube, classes, just trying experiments?
I would say mostly just trying, because again, I don't like to just listen to a lesson. So maybe, obviously, yeah, if I'm starting from scratch on some new topic, I will try to read some documentation, read or watch some YouTube videos. But then as soon as I can make my first steps kind of independently, I like to just try, and I like to learn by doing, essentially. So I was mentioning I was a web developer. Over time, I can't count how many projects I've done. All of them failed, like terrible projects, but over time it's like a social network kind of thing. It's a platform for managers. At one point I was working on a platform for tracking meat. Like if it's authentic. No, luckily no blockchain. It was all centralized, all databases. But yeah, so like over time I've done a lot of projects, learning from my mistakes. And I think that's what works well for me. Probably not for everybody, but that's kind of my way.
That's cool. And so what would be the difference for me that I'm not a coder? I understand Bitcoin at a, I think, pretty high level, but I don't know how to program. What would be the big difference between a programmer and a hacker? And would you differentiate those two? Because I see the hacking BS.
Yeah, I don't know. I think there's not a clear line. So in my mind, I would say a hacker is more of a person that experiments with stuff. So hacking is not just breaking stuff, but also, breaking is a way of experimenting. So like you take a smartphone and you're like, what's inside? What does the operating system do? So you try to hack it, not really because you want to, I don't know, steal your girlfriend's text message or whatever, just because you want to learn more. So I think hacking is more like being curious and trying out stuff. Sometimes it involves breaking stuff, like looking into them. Sometimes it's just prototyping stuff. So for example, at HackBS, which is this hackerspace that Daniel and I opened, we don't really hack people or services. We mainly do new stuff, but we experiment, we try. So I would say an hacker is more of a practical person. A programmer is more of a generic. Like an hacker can be a programmer, can also be something else, not necessarily a programmer. Hacker could also mean like physical, like you could experiment with mechanical stuff, not necessarily programming. So I would say it's kind of a mix many times, but it's also a bit different. Programming is more of a job. Hacking is more of a passion of experimenting and play with things and
Yeah, I feel like you need to be really curious to be a hacker.
Yeah. And I mean, again, for me, curiosity has always been my drive. Again, I learned to code by myself because I was curious. I wanted to know what was going on in the computer. So then you start learning about the web, and it's like how do networks work, and then you start learning about the network stacks and stuff, and it's an endless rabbit hole. You can always find more stuff. And for me, curiosity is my drive, and I'm also interested in like 3D printing because I'm curious about that as well. I'm interested in physics, chemistry, all of stuff because again I have this curiosity. So that's why I define myself an hacker, because I like to play around with a little bit of everything. And
you were mentioning the rabbit hole. How did you discover the Bitcoin? Because did you ever had a fiat job?
Not really, not a full-time job, but again, while I was in school, I was working a little bit. I was doing like part-time jobs, kind of things, and these were fiat jobs. It was just web development mostly. I actually don't remember how I got to know Bitcoin initially, but at some point at the kind of end of high school, I knew about it. I don't remember. I remember I was watching the price, watching these kind of things, just from very far away. I was not involved. I was not, but still, it was interesting. I kind of understood some technical parts of it, some political parts as well. The libertarian values. In Italy, we do this thing at the end of high school, especially if you go to technical high schools like I did. We have to build some kind of projects to show it off as a final exam, basically. And I had learned about Bitcoin, and I was a web developer, so the thing I built was a web miner, the one that spam your computer. I had good intentions. First of all, I didn't know they existed, so I thought I was like a genius. I invented this thing. It's awesome. I'm gonna make a lot of money. Then I found out it already existed. But my good intentions were, I don't like ads on websites. I want to build an alternative. So my idea was, when you go to a website, you can choose, do you want to see the ad or do you want to mine in background for. So that was my first kind of project, and I wanted to use Bitcoin. Obviously, mining Bitcoin on a browser is super inefficient, so I used Monero in the end, but mainly because it was the only practical one. And so that was kind of my first steps in Bitcoin, was this web miner, web development. And then again, I met Giacomo. I showed him his project. He told me it was stupid, but still he liked my, I don't know, he liked me as a person, I guess, my talent, whatever. And so he still hired me, and from that on, I got into Bitcoin full time.
You moved to Blockstream, you mentioned.
Yeah. At some point with Giacomo I was having a lot of fun. We were doing a lot of research projects, but then, those kind of things, they never last, and people change. And in this case, Giacomo was starting to have a family, so he didn't have as much time to follow the company. So I felt like at some point it was not as fun to work there anymore. It was not as interesting anymore because it was kind of dying off. Everybody was busy doing other stuff. There was not so much going on anymore. And so at that point, I figured I want to do more. I want to learn more. I'm going to go to what I thought was the best company in the space, or at least the largest company, the most structured company. And so I applied and I joined Blockstream at the time, mainly working on the green mobile apps, and also Jade. I did a lot of the initial, the basis for Jade, and then I left before it was revealed to the public. But yeah.
Are you happy with what Jade became?
I'm
curious to get your point of view. What do you think of the hardware? Sorry, Blockstream, he's going to be honest. But,
no. Yeah, my honest opinion is I really like many decisions. There are some things I don't like, but also I don't think you could do better. So I still think that's the best way that they could do it. The pin server, I'm torn apart. So for some things I like the idea of the pin server. Are you familiar with Jade? Do you know?
I know how it works, Jade. Maybe you can explain to the audience how it works, and you can go as technical as possible. Our audience need to learn.
I like that. So, Jade is an hardware wallet, mainly on-chain, actually only on-chain hardware wallet, and it doesn't have a secure element. So some other hardware wallets like Ledger, they have a secure element, which is a special kind of chip that's designed to basically be hardened against physical attacks. So in theory, if you have your keys on a secure element and some malicious actor gets your secure element, it should be impossible, obviously. Nothing is impossible. It should be very, very hard to extract the keys from this chip. Other wallets don't have a secure element, like Trezor, for example. They just use general purpose processors. So from these other kind of CPUs, it's much easier to extract the secret. But there is a trade-off, because normally when you use a secure element, the company selling you the secure element will make you sign NDAs and a bunch of stuff, and it will probably prevent you from open sourcing the code that runs on the secure element. So with the ledger, you can read the code that runs on the normal CPU, but the code that runs on the secure element, it's closed down. While on the other end, for example, Trezor, everything is open. So it's a trade-off. If you want more openness, if you want to be able to audit everything, you need a normal CPU, but the normal CPU is not as secure as a secure element. And so it's hard to choose. You have to kind of decide what you want to maximize, I guess. Jade instead kind of came up with a new solution. So Jade doesn't have a secure element, so it's still insecure. You could extract the secret from the device, but they have this thing where, let's say part of the secret, it's not your full key, it's just like a little piece of the secret is stored on Blockstream servers, or if you want to, you can also host your own if you're technical enough. And basically the way it works is when you insert the PIN, it's going to be the server remotely that checks the PIN, and if it's correct, it gives you this, like, let's say, missing piece of secret. And with that, you have most of the secret on your device. With that, you can complete it, I guess. So Blockstream can never take your money. With that piece of secret, they cannot do anything. But if an attacker takes your device, they extract the key, they can also not do anything. They need that other piece from Blockstream. It's like a 2 of 2 in a way, multi-sig. The problem that I kind of see with this is, first of all, you need an internet connection whenever you want to use your device, because you need to contact the server and get the secret. Also, potentially, what Blockstream does is they prevent brute force attempts. So after a few failed PIN attempts, they'll delete the secret. But you have to trust them that they're doing it. Obviously, they cannot prove to you that they are actually doing it. So I don't know, let's say law enforcement takes your device and they want to get out the money. They could go to Blockstream and say, for this device, don't enforce. Let us brute force, basically, right? So again, Blockstream doesn't have the money, but if you extract the secret from the device and then you brute force the PIN, you can. So I don't know, there are some things I like, some things I don't like. The thing I don't like about the PIN server is mainly the dependency on the internet connection, because I feel like with security devices, the more they are like air-gapped, kind of the better. So I don't really like that you have to have an internet connection and everything active. But on the other hand, I think it's a really cool solution. At least it's an innovative solution. They came up with this thing which is new. Nobody had ever done it before. Yeah, I don't know. Everything else about the Jade I really like. That's kind of the only thing that I don't love, but also I cannot think of any other solution. So it's still pretty good, I think.
Yeah, no, Jade it's also really cheap compared to, for example, a Blockstream that has a lot of functionality. I think like the Jade is a great trade-off on how much they're working on it compared to Cold Card. I meant that is way more technical and complex.
Yeah, I think with Jade, when we were kind of working on it, we were thinking about making it easy for people to use, so not super technical. So again, this is probably pissing off some more technical users because they want to have full control. But I mean, you can like flash your own firmware, obviously, if you want. So you can modify the firmware and everything is open source. But from the stock firmware, yes, it's more geared toward kind of being easy to use, especially with the green app. So it's very, I don't know, paid, works really well with the green apps, obviously.
It must be fun to work in Bitcoin, because you were mentioning that earlier all the projects you worked during high school and preschool kind of failed and were like bullshit things. And now since you are into Bitcoin, I feel like you're building like stronger products that do matter.
Well, I would say, so most of my Bitcoin projects are also failing. But I think that's normal. So like when you kind of prototype a lot, when you invent a lot of stuff, most of them, they're not going to work out. Maybe they are bad ideas, maybe you execute them badly, maybe it's not the right time. So there are many ways in which things can fail. There are a few things that I work on that I feel like are kind of successful, so BDK is working out well. So yeah, I don't know, but I would still say failure is part of your life when you are experimenting and inventing a lot of stuff. So most of them will naturally die, but some of them, they will kind of keep going and prosper.
Speaking of BDK, yeah, I think it's a big success.
Yeah.
A lot of people use it. Could you explain to people that are less technical what is BDK, how did it got into life, and what it can be used for?
So, well, BDK is basically a Rust library that you can use if you want to build. We normally say Bitcoin wallets, but we mean Bitcoin wallets in a very generic sense. So any kind of application that deals with Bitcoin transaction, on-chain transactions, could benefit from using BDK. So if you are an exchange and you are creating transaction for user or creating addresses to get deposits, all this kind of stuff, it doesn't have to be like a single user wallet. But in general, any kind of things that receives transaction, sends transaction, this kind of stuff. The cool thing about BDK is that we use descriptors natively. So descriptors are a way for you to express complex spending conditions in a very kind of easy syntax. And so you can, with BDK, build a wallet, which is a complex like multi-sig, you have time locks involved, you have all of these different pieces in a very easy way. And you can use that as the basis for your product. So BDK is obviously mostly targeted to other developers. It's not a final product that user can use, but developers building these things, they can use BDK and integrate it.
That's cool. Do you know how many people work on BDK and when did it start exactly? I think it was 3 years ago?
Yeah, so it started 3 years ago. It basically started as soon as I left Blockstream because the inspiration for BDK was, what if we were to recreate Blockstream Green today? So Blockstream Green previously was called Green Address. It's a very old, in Bitcoin terms at least, app. So there's a lot of legacy code. There's a lot of, which is, I mean, it's normal. You build something in, I think it was created before BIP39, or maybe BIP39 wasn't even, so the mnemonics format was not even fully finalized and everything. So obviously you're going to have a lot of legacy code because you still want to be backward compatible. You still want your user who created the wallet at the beginning, you still want the user to be able to use the wallet. And so Green had this problem that there was a lot of legacy code or complex, if like workarounds. Like, oh yeah, we do this thing for wallets that were created between 2013 and 2014, and then we do this other thing, a lot of complex stuff. And so the idea was, can we generalize this? Can we make it more general? So can I write a piece of code that will handle all of these complex cases? This was kind of the idea that was, I was talking to my colleagues at Blockstream. And so when I left Blockstream, I was like, maybe I could try building this thing. And that was like the beginning of BDK. Initially, it was just by myself. I was part-time funded by Bitfinex, Tether. So basically, they hired me for other stuff. And they told me I could spend half of my time on BDK, which was my own project, the other half of my time working for them, essentially, for mainly RGB. And so, yeah, I was like part-time funded. I was spending half of my time on BDK. Then I managed to find full-time funding with Brink. And around the time, I also joined forces with Steve. Steve Myers he was running a similar project, but he realized we both had the same goals, but his project was farther behind. So he was like, there's no point in competing. Let's just join forces. And so he kind of joined. And from that point on, I think the team grew to like 4 or 5 full-time people, mainly funded from Spiral, was funded by Brink, the others mainly from Spiral. But it's all up and down. Like people get a 1-year grant, then the grant expires, they go back to their job maybe. This happened a couple of times, like people taking a sabbatical from their company to work on BDK for a year, then when the grant expires, they go back to the company. So it's all kind of up and down. I think now there are 2 or 3 full-time people with full-time grants and many other like contributors that either part-time or just that they hang around and do some work. But yeah, it's hard to quantify because we're not like a company. So it's just individual people that decide to work on the project. And again, I keep saying we, but I'm not really working on BDK anymore. I'm kind of stepped down now. So I'm not counting myself in this, in this number.
You're mentioning something interesting that I often talk with Lightning developers or Bitcoin developers or people that do work in the space. Is like because everything is open source, it's hard to get the right business model. It's hard to get the money, the funding, and it's like people are building on top of Bitcoin Core, but like how do you finance people that do work on Bitcoin Core? How do you see that as your point of view for being in this space for so long? How is the grant system going? What is your taste, the point of view on the whole system?
So I think grants are the best thing we can do, especially the way I don't really know about others, so I'm not gonna comment about them, but I know especially about Spiral. Spiral gives you a lot of freedom, flexibility, and we need this especially for Bitcoin Core because we don't want to have one company that employs all the Bitcoin Core developers. So I don't know if you remember a few years ago, Blockstream was the evil company because everybody was at Blockstream. Obviously, I don't think Blockstream was evil, but it was true that it was bad for decentralization to have all the developers there. Then over time, some of them went to like chain code, I would say, mostly. Some of them remained Blockstream, some of them got grants. So I think grants are probably the best thing we can do to decentralize, especially if you give, like Spiral does, money with kind of no strings attached. It's like you are free to do whatever you want. It is hard, obviously, for new people to join, I would say. So like if you're just, I don't know, if you have a career somewhere and you decide I want to work on Bitcoin, getting a grant from day one, it's probably going to be very hard. But I think it should be because grants are, again, with no strings attached. So when you give money to somebody, you want to at least, they need to have some kind of reputation. They need to have proven something. So from beginners, most of the time, I would say the best thing to do is to join a company. Also because you learn probably faster because you have somebody guiding you, following you. When you go work on open source, you're kind of on your own, so you need to be able to manage your time and just be able to work essentially by yourself. So I don't know, this was kind of a convoluted answer. I think that for open source, the best kind of model we can have is grants, and I think it's working out really well. But that creates kind of a barrier for new people. So new people, I guess they should join a company, and then if you want to work on Bitcoin Core, you want to work on open source stuff, you can apply for a grant and try to get that.
Yeah, I do agree. Grant is good. Actually, Spiral refused to help the university because they don't do education. So
Okay, I didn't know that.
Kind of sad, but maybe it changed since the video is coming up.
I hope so. Yeah.
You mentioned RGB, and before you were at Blockstream. Blockstream is also working with a lot of other solutions to advance the layers of Bitcoin with Taro and other things like that. You like RGB? I didn't know you were into RGB, so I like RGB. So I'm wondering, what's your point of view, and how do you see all those layer 3? I don't like to call them layer 3, but you know what I mean, coming up, and the competition between all of those companies.
So it's an interesting question. Personally, I like RGB as a technological achievement. So I think it's a really cool technical idea, essentially. I don't really like assets and stuff, or more than I don't see a lot of reasons to have them. Like I think most of the time it's just like a circus for getting investors money, essentially. Like most of the time you don't need blockchain, you don't need a token, you don't need an asset on chain. It's expensive, it's not efficient. So so what I've always said with RGB was I think it's a technical challenge, it's a really cool kind of research project. In practice, I think there are very few use cases. Like maybe the main one is stable coins, I think, and also that most of the funding for RGB actually comes from Tether, so that's why they also see it the way I do. So they also would like to use it for their stable coin, and I think that's maybe the main use case. Other use cases, I think they're mostly bullshit in my opinion. But yeah, and I don't know, I'm not really up to speed with all the new ones because like every day we have a new
solution, like
a new thing. So
we have all the calls.
Yeah, I'm not really following all of them, so I don't know. I can't really comment on those, but I think RGB is really cool. It took a long time to be finalized, but now it should be mostly ready from what I understand. So yeah, it's finally we have it. We can use it.
Yeah, no, I do agree. So what do you see the future of Bitcoin being? Like you're doing, so you stopped BDK, you're doing more consulting right now. What do you see the companies are interesting? What do you see like the future of like where all the developers are trying to move to? Is it just Lightning? What do you think is the path for new key? I'm thinking of the students here at the university that they do know Bitcoin, they're like going down and down and down, and now they probably want to quit their fiat job, and they don't know in which aspect of Bitcoin to work, where to study more to be like the most efficient to help the ecosystem. Where would you advise them to go?
So, well, I think over time the developers working on protocol stuff is obviously going to be a minority. So if you want to work on Bitcoin Core, that's super cool. That's very valuable work. But also, I think it's going to be hard to be able to work on Bitcoin Core full time and get funding and everything, because we cannot all work on Bitcoin Core. We need to build products for people to actually use Bitcoin. So I would say most of them, they probably end up in some kind of startups or company building a product. I think, in my opinion, the most of work that needs to be done is in terms of UX, let's say, or just making it easier, making it more reliable, because still nowadays you download the Lightning wallet and you try to receive money and it doesn't work, and you have to, oh yeah, you need to press this button 5 times. I mean, don't get me wrong, I think companies are doing a great job, but there's still, I think, a lot more to do. So I think the future of Bitcoin is going to be more like it happened with tech, like the tech kind of explosion over the 90s, 2000s. It started as a thing for nerds, and then it became more and more a product for everybody. Like, it became more useful, it became more. So I think most of the work in the next few years is going to go there. And if Bitcoin manages to, I don't know, to become bigger, then there's going to be a lot of jobs for maintaining this stuff. Like today, there are a lot of jobs in tech. There's going to be a lot of jobs for keeping these products and apps and services running. So
node manager is going to be like a full-time job at some point.
Yeah, like managing services, managing platforms, managing nodes if you're part of the infrastructure for the network, for Lightning Network. So, and I think, so regarding your question, is it going to be mostly Lightning? I'm not sure. It's going to be mostly Lightning, but I don't think we should not forget on-chain, because you cannot keep all of your wealth on Lightning. It's not safe. So we still need to do a lot related to on-chain things as well. So products that will make it safer, make it easier for people to store their wealth. And then you need Lightning wallets for day-to-day payments.
Yeah, you're mentioning safer wallets on chain, so I'm guessing multisig. I'm French. I like Kevin and Antoine from Without Sardine. I'm pretty sure you know them too. What do you think of Liana and like those time lock solution? So you get like multisig that can decade into like 5 out of 5, 4 out of 5, 3, and all the inheritance plan that can be like set up within the user experience, stuff like that. You think there's a path there, a use case?
Yeah, I think again that's kind of the best we can do, unless we have, if we manage to activate covenants and stuff on chain, then we can have more advanced vaults on chain. Everybody keeps saying vaults. Mm-hmm. I think with what we have right now, that's probably the best we can do. Especially Liana, I like it because I think it's pretty simple for everybody to use. The other protocol they were working on, Revolt, that's cool, but that's much more complicated. That's obviously not for an individual, a non-technical individual trying to store his wealth. So that's more for big or companies that have advanced policies. Liana is more, it's easier for other users. So that's, I think, definitely a good step in the direction of making it easy to store your money.
It's a question I've asked a couple of persons that came before you here. Which BIP do you think is going to be the next one to pass? You know what I'm talking about. We were mentioning Covenant and Ops. So like, what do you think?
Well, first of all, I don't know the numbers. Again, I'm not really keeping up with what's going on. So I don't know. I can't tell you the BIP whatever number. I know there's the kind of the options I feel like are CTV. Somebody says just APO or more complex advanced covenants. I have no idea which one is gonna pass. I feel like we are all split. So there's no clear consensus for one of these options. And I think maybe it's still, the reason why there is no clear consensus is that it's still too early. So we probably need to do more research, and over time we will, obviously there's always going to be disagreement, but when we have more research, we can probably evaluate these options better and say, yeah, this one, maybe I don't like it for everything, but it does have some good points, so maybe we should do this one. So again, I have no idea which one is going to activate. I think my opinion that I formed by speaking with a few people is that it's really nice to have recursive covenants. So I would say if we want to coordinate a soft fork, which is always painful, it's always complicated, we might as well activate the good thing, which is recursive covenants, not just a simple one so that we can later upgrade, because then it's another mess when we want to upgrade. So my opinion is I would probably prefer to have recursive covenants because I feel like they can be useful, and if we need to do an upgrade, might as well do all of it together. But I don't know, I have no idea where it's going to go. It's so complicated, and I try to stay away from the drama, I don't want to spend my day fighting with people on Twitter, this one is better than this other one.
You don't want to talk with Peter anymore.
I like Peter, but I don't like, maybe sometimes I like some of his tweets if I agree with him, otherwise I just ignore them. I'm trying to quit Twitter. I realized I was spending too much time, and it was all, like, people fighting. It's not pleasure, I would say. It's not fun to look at a feed of people fighting with each other constantly. So I realized, it's maybe I'm better off.
Are you moving away from Twitter to Noster, or are you moving completely and you want to go back to your hackerspace intelligence?
Yeah, I'm just trying to not use social media in general because it's always fighting. Even on Twitter, there's Bitcoin people fighting. On other social media, there's left versus right, and this is better than the other. It's all, I don't know. It's not nice if you are, like you say, I want to take a break from work and you go read this. It's not going to put you in a good mood. So I'm just trying to quit social media in general, I'd say.
It's better for your privacy too.
Yeah, better for privacy, not posting much, yeah.
I'm curious because I think, if I'm not mistaken, you are the first Italian person we do have on this new university YouTube channel. How is the Italian Bitcoin community?
I think there is a pretty big community, but not that many developers. So there's a lot of people interested in Bitcoin that like Bitcoin, but they don't work on Bitcoin, or maybe they're not even technical. Like, they have other completely unrelated jobs, but they like Bitcoin. Obviously, they are not able to appreciate the technical details. They will like Bitcoin for the libertarian values, like, your own money, nobody can touch them, it's preserved from inflation. So I think there's definitely a very large community. There's this event, or like a series of events called Satoshi Spritz, which was, the idea was we sit at a bar and we drink spritz while we talk about Bitcoin. That started in Milan. It was funded by my colleagues, now ex-colleagues at Blockstream. So when we were at Blockstream, we funded this thing, and now it expanded like everywhere. I think there are like 20, 30 Satoshi Spritz groups in Italy. It's a very decentralized kind of thing. So there are definitely a lot of people, but not that many developers. We're trying to do our part with HackBS, so we're trying to onboard people, especially onboard developers, and teach them, or at least show them Bitcoin so that they can get into it. But yeah, right now I'd say many people, not many developers, coders.
Maybe you can explain what is HBS?
Yeah, so basically HackBS is this hackerspace that Daniel and I opened in Italy. And the idea of an hackerspace is just like a community space where people hang out with each other, they work on projects together. It's a very loose, there's no purpose, there's not a single purpose. The idea is we provide a space, you can come there, you hang out with people, and then whatever happens. We founders are very focused on Bitcoin, on privacy, on cypherpunk values. So we're putting a very strong cypherpunk kind of footprint in a way. So for example, I don't know, we are trying to host everything on our own servers. We don't want to use Google Mail so that Google can read your mail. We have our own mail server, all this kind of stuff. But people can come even if they're not Bitcoiners, even if they're not technical, although most people that come are technical. And yeah, we have like mainly young people, like students, college students coming. They stay there for like, they spend the night there. We work together on some projects. Sometimes we just watch a movie together. It doesn't have to be, we're kind of building a community that values Bitcoin and cypherpunk ideas, and from that we'll see what happens. We will hopefully invent stuff. Maybe we'll come up with something. Maybe not. I don't know.
No, it's really cool, and I like what you did in Italy with the community. I've noticed the pattern. It's the same in Germany with the hunters, 21 million. The same in France with Découvre, or the same in Spain. And I think it does create a decentralized network of mentoring and people that can help. And if someone has a Bitcoin question, you can just like go search for that local community, talk with Bitcoiners, get the answers, get the vibe, get the culture. So it's really important that we do have those meetups. So kudos to you. All right, that's pretty cool. Do you have any words for the students, for anyone out there? A piece of advice, maybe. Don't lose your key.
Don't lose your key. Yeah. No, I don't know. It's well, I mean, in some ways, Bitcoin is just like any other job. It's just you need to learn the technical stuff, but on the other hand, Bitcoin is also much more. So maybe a piece of advice I would tell people is, if you're just looking for a job, Bitcoin is probably very hard because there's a lot of involvement in terms of political matters and stuff. So my piece of advice would be, if you're passionate about Bitcoin, keep going. Or otherwise, find your passion. And I don't know. I guess most of the people that will be looking at this video, they're probably already passionate about Bitcoin. So maybe that's not a good advice. But yeah, so my advice is just be passionate about what you do. Find your thing. It could be Bitcoin, it could be something else. It's, nothing good or bad, unless it's CBDCs. Those are bad. So don't go work on CBDCs. But yeah, my advice is just be passionate, be curious. I think that if you have this kind of drive, that brings you forward.
It's funny. It's a good advice. Every person I have talk about CBDC and just say CBDCs are bad. So,
it's like a common.
It's going to be the common theme of the entire university. It's called the sovereign university, and it's going to be end up like just no
the
CBDC.
Punchline is CBDCs are bad.
Yeah, that's cool. We are here in El Salvador for Cuba Plus. Just maybe a quick word on like how do you find the adoption here on the ground? What's your point of view, like really quickly on like, actually not quickly, you can take your time. But like, how do you see the adoption here in El Salvador? And maybe then Cuba Plus, what do you see the students and how do you feel? I know we've talked a lot, they're juniors, but let's start by the Salvadorian adoption, just your point of view so the audience can get a large range of point of view from all the people that came here for Cuba Plus.
Yeah, so I mean, my point of view, I didn't really have a chance to try using Bitcoin a lot, so while we used it a couple of times, my feeling is that there is definitely adoption. Like people want to use Bitcoin, people are learning it, but I think people are still very skeptical, or like they don't really fully understand what's going on. So maybe they'll accept Bitcoin, but with custodian wallets, with these wallets that convert immediately. So you can definitely use Bitcoin in your day-to-day life, but I don't think there's adoption in the sense that adoption in the sense that people want Bitcoin and they want to hold Bitcoin and they want to. But I think obviously compared to any other country, it's still miles ahead. So it's on the right track. And I think programs like Cuba Plus are, Cuba Plus is more on the technical side, but we need more of these events, more of these programs so we can educate people, we can educate locals so that they can go and educate more people. In this case, Cuba Plus is a technical program, so this is more geared toward having like a Bitcoin industry here, because I feel like, I don't know, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think there are any major companies, many major Bitcoin companies here. Like it's so they're still all in North America, in Europe, Switzerland, whatever. So I think it's very wise for them to be trying to build a local Bitcoin industry, like companies here, people developing here, because that brings a lot of money. It's good for the country, I would say. And also, so we need Bitcoin, we need Cuba Plus, we need educational programs in general to educate people. And hopefully it's also going to be a matter of time. So if they see the price go up, they'll maybe start at least looking into it a bit more. So yeah, I think it's again, a long way to go. It's not that everybody loves Bitcoin, everybody wants Bitcoin. It's still going to take time, but it's on the right track.
Awesome. Where can the audience find you? Do you have so you don't use Twitter anymore. So do you have a blog? Do you have something?
So yeah, I mean, I still have Twitter. I keep saying I want to quit it. I'm still using it a bit. I don't post much, but my Twitter handle is Fellini, so A is the initial of my name and Fellini my last name, then obviously put the link. I also have a website which is samething.com. I do have a blog, sometimes I post there mainly technical stuff. So whenever I come across something cool technically that I feel like it's not well documented, I like to post on my blog new things that nobody's has really talked about. So when I spend some time fixing a problem because I cannot find a solution on the internet, then I'll write a blog post for others to find it. So there's a blog as well. And then then we have hackbs, it's hack.bs.it for the hackerspace. And that's pretty much it, I guess.
Yeah, and then use BDK.
Yeah, use BDK. If you need anything, feel free to text us on Twitter. We have Bitcoin Dev Kit Twitter account. We have a Discord server.
Everything will be in the description. Alekos, thank you so much for joining us today for this interview. Thank you for all the work you did with Scuba Plus and the students. They have a long way to go, but it is the beginning, and they will make it at some point. Thank you for what you've done with Bitcoin, and I'll see you around at conferences.
Thank you. Yeah.
Don't forget to subscribe, share, like. If you have a question for Alekos, put them in the description. Odds are he's not going to respond, but who knows? Try it anyway. I will see you around. Don't forget to join the university. 12 or 15 courses for free from beginners to Lightning Dev and RGB developers. Just have fun studying. See you guys.